Please can you remind me, if you'll be so kind, staring out into space, asking God to hear my case, trying to think of all things past. How long will my memory last? But purple angel, purple angel, purple angel, you're next.
Hi everyone, it's Lori La Bey with Alzheimer Speaks Radio, and I'm excited for our conversation today. We're going to be talking with a group from Keynote Music Therapy, and I think we're going to learn a lot from that. But before I get started, we always get new listeners, and so I'd just like to tell you a little bit about us. Bottom line, Alzheimer Speaks was created because my mom lived with dementia for 30 years, and I got really frustrated trying to find resources, tips, and tools, because I thought there had to be other people in the world going through what our family was going through. And oh my gosh, are there people willing to share great information? And that's what we've been doing for almost 10 years now on Alzheimer Speaks Radio. We understand the frustrations, the joys, the depressions, the overwhelmingness, the exhaustion sometimes that can happen. But we want to give you hope and let you know that there's a really cool side to this disease that can make your relationships much more authentic. And there are great tools and resources out there, plus research, and we cover it all. So subscribe to our show and feel free to pass it on. It's all free information. And for those of you that are in business and target this market, I'd love to talk to you about expanding your brand footprint. We can easily help you with that as well through our multimedia sources. And to our listeners, oh my gosh, you guys have spread the word of our work all around the world, and I can't thank you enough. So keep up your likes, your clicks, and your shares, because it really is helping people find information that's difficult to find. And they're hearing from actual people who are in the trenches with this. Now, before I introduce our guests, I'm just going to give a shout out to Gable Pines. I'm excited. I'm going to be out there Thursday morning, January 30th from 7:30 to about 9:30, doing a program on why families act the way they do. And it's about dementia realities, perceptions, and stigmas. And I think sometimes staff and families both judge each other without really knowing what's going on the other side. And so this will jump into that and also give you tips and tools to work together better, and for both of you, both sides, to be able to understand some of the trigger points that people with dementia have, and how we can allow them to live a better life by supporting what their needs are and helping them adapt. I will also be doing a webinar same day, Thursday, January 30th at 3 p.m. Eastern with the Greenhouse Project. And that webinar is called From Crisis to Comfort, Shifting Dementia Care by Giving All Voice. And on that one, we're going to be talking about stress triggers and how to reduce unwanted behaviors and increase moments of joy, the role of family caregiving and how that has changed, and why our roles are changing and how they are perceived. And you can go to alzheimerspeaks.com and get connection information for both of these programs. And then, of course, I want to give a shout out to the Memory Cafe directory. There you can find out if there's a memory cafe in your area, or maybe you have one and you want to get listed. They won't charge you to be in there. So reach out to Memory Cafe directory for more information. Those are gatherings for people with dementia and their care partners. And then I adore Stall Catchers. They have created a video game that allows all of us to play this game. And they have people 6 to 96 playing this game. And when you play the game, you're actually analyzing real Alzheimer's data. So check out stallcatchers.com. So with no further ado, let me introduce you to our guest today, Kayla Shafer. And she is a board-certified music therapist and received her master's in music therapy from the University of Minnesota. And she is the co-founder of Keynote Music Therapy. And she works to advocate for the profession of music therapists and through clinical practice in services, presentations, and conversations. And I'm really excited because I super believe in the power of music. I saw it from my own eyes with my mother and her journey of dementia. So welcome, Kayla. How are you doing today?
Thank you, Lori. I'm doing great today. I'm so excited to get to talk to you about music therapy.
Yeah, I am too. This is just, it's one of those topics that, it's something we use every day, but people don't really realize the power behind it. They don't, we take so much in life for granted as a whole, I think. And music is one of those things that it can calm us down, it can lift us up, and it can make us cry as well. And once we tune into that, and you guys have gone through all this schooling to really get to know the specifics of it, which some you'll share with us today in the short time that we have you. I think it'll be life-changing for a lot of people in terms of being able to tap into that power and that calmness and that joy. Now, sitting next to you is Carolyn Meyer, and she is also a board-certified music therapist, and she received her Bachelor of Science degree in music therapy from Augsburg University. And Carolyn has implemented music therapy services in a variety of different settings, from adult day services to preschool to memory care and hospice, children's hospitals, and even the burn recovery camp for children in China. So her mission is to really foster healing and discovery for clients that she engages with. And she takes her skills and her passions to the community as an advocate, both for the population she serves as well as the field of music therapy as well. So welcome, Carolyn. How are you doing today?
Good. It's great to be here, Lori. Thank you.
Wonderful. Before we get started in our line of question, I always like to ask my guests if they have been personally touched by dementia. And there's no right or wrong answer with that, but it's just kind of a nice little background for people to have. And so, Kayla, have you been personally touched in your own, family or circle of friends by any form of dementia?
Two of my grandparents both experienced dementia late in their lives. And so I did get to see that firsthand. I was in college and then a young adult when they both died. And, I was there with them along that journey. And of course, I knew them before they had dementia. And so still could find ways, but often those ways to connect with them were through music, since they knew that was something that was important to me, and it was an experience that we had shared throughout my whole life together. I often connected them right up until the very last days of their lives with music.
Okay. How about you, Carolyn?
Yeah, kind of similar to Kayla. I had a grandpa that had dementia, and he was a musician as well. He played the accordion and the piano, and it was wonderful to be able to have that, something so wonderful to connect us at the end of his life, especially when a lot of his abilities were so slim. So I think it was another thing that, like Kayla said, music was something that I associate with my grandfather even at the end of his life.
Yeah, music is really powerful. I know, like with my mom, when she died, we played one of her favorite songs, and it was "You Are My Sunshine," and everybody sang it, and it was like so uplifting on the way out, of the memorial service. Everyone was like, "Oh, I really." They said a lot of people didn't know my mom. They came because they knew family members, and they're like, "Wow, we really feel like we know her now." And part of that was through song, and it was just such a cool gift for us as a family to hear that, but for them to receive as well. So I'll just put that in as a plug. It can be a really uplifting thing in a really difficult time sometimes to be able to use. Now, Kayla, can you give us a little background as to the mission of Keynote Music Therapy and why you got it started?
Absolutely. So Keynote Music Therapy was started in 2015. A colleague of mine, his name's Ben Musburger, and I started the business. At that time, we both were working in adult hospice. And he is not a music therapist, but his background is licensed marriage and family therapy, as well as grief counseling. And together, we set out to start a business to do a couple of things. One, we wanted to provide a supportive team environment for music therapists because we are often the only one of our kind in places that we work. And so we wanted to provide support for music therapists who might be isolated in our work. Second, we wanted to increase access to music therapy services in our community. As we know, the aging population is growing, and the baby boomer generation is about to enter into independent living, assisted living, memory care, etc. So as time has gone by since 2015, we've kind of started to streamline our services more towards older adults with cognitive and memory impairments, whether they live still in their homes with family or caregivers or in residential facilities, assisted living, long-term care, memory care, etc. And we've really started to strengthen that mission in the last couple of years by increasing our services out in the community, offering more group sessions to those facilities, and really trying to reach individuals and their caregivers.
I think that that's interesting that you wanted to support more music therapists because, like you said, you're kind of lone wolves out there, and a lot of people don't understand the specialty and the amount of school that you guys go through to learn these techniques, because we're so used to like turn on the radio or plug in a CD, and yeah, we can get some of the same effects, but we don't understand all of the mechanics that are happening and all of the ways you guys have learned to really leverage it and max it out is pretty incredible. And so I find that really interesting. And the expansion, I think, is so greatly needed. And, you know, I would love to see Medicare and those and insurance companies come to the plate and say, this is a prescription. Music is a prescription for a healthy life. And, you know, it's a lot cheaper and it's a lot easier on our systems in a lot of ways than a lot of the medications, and doesn't have near the side effects that some of the prescriptions and stuff do. But I think we're still a ways off, but I am an advocate of that. If anyone wants to start that, I'll back you up all the way.
Wonderful.
Carolyn, why don't you share with the audience a little bit about types of specific services and the various populations that you work with Keynote Music Therapy? Because I think sometimes people, you know, I know as a speaker, I was told, pick a lane, you got to just pick a lane and stay there. And yet music is used by everybody. So why don't you talk to us about the populations and the types of services that you have?
Yeah, so specifically, I'm out in the field in the community doing the music therapy with residents or people in their homes. So kind of types of services that Keynote offers is we do group sessions as well as individual and family sessions. And kind of moving forward, just to kind of explain that a little more, when we say individual and family sessions, we mean that we're always trying to include loved ones and family members, caregivers in our services. So although we're kind of prioritizing the individual and their needs, we're also kind of acknowledging that family system and how important it is. But kind of what I'm doing is I'm going in and facilitating these group sessions, and kind of how my process is I take tidbits from the research and how I learn a little bit about how music affects the brain and how music affects these populations, whether that be in a memory care group or whether that be with an individual with Parkinson's or other mental health needs like depression and anxiety. I specialize pretty much in older adult populations, but our team does see other populations as well. But I'm kind of going in and doing a group, and perhaps we're working on physical movement, or we're working on cognitive stimulation or reminiscence, or and we're socially engaging with one another and collaborating, or just kind of using music to be playful and express ourselves. So it looks a little different depending on the group and their needs and what I'm assessing, that to be a need in that group setting or in the individual setting. But overall, kind of I'm pulling from the research. I'm using my skills to be able to assess and adapt to meet people's needs in the moment.
So do you, let's say you go into a memory care, do you talk with the life enrichment person or social worker, whoever hires you first to say, what are your needs? And do you kind of scrutinize that first and then tap into your skilled resources that you've learned through music therapy?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So I'm kind of pulling from a couple different resources. Like I said, the research, whether that be on dementia and Alzheimer's or music therapy research. I'm communicating with staff. Oftentimes the staff that are hands-on with the residents are the people that know them quite well. So I'm communicating with them, and especially if they're sitting in on our group, and I'm able to communicate what I need and what I'd like to learn from their residents. And also, like you said, oftentimes we work with enrichment specialists or activities directors, and we're connecting with them about what their needs are. But I often find that the people that are hands-on with these people know them so well and know what they need, and then that goes along with my own personal music therapy assessment when I'm doing my groups.
And I would imagine when you do the groups, you got to be a little bit flexible because you never know how everyone's showing up that day or in that moment or whatever.
Yeah, well, that's kind of the beautiful thing about our training and our education, is that we're able to adapt in the moment and be able to meet everyone's individual goals and needs. And sometimes that means I come in with a plan and I do something completely different. And that happens quite often, but it's so important to be able to support people is by being adaptable and versatile.
So when you come in, are you just, singing to them? Are you using instruments, or is that something that they get involved in doing? How does that play out? And I would imagine there's various forms and things that you do with that.
Yeah, so for my group specific sessions, oftentimes I'm just really trying to get them oriented to the space to start off, whether that be with a song such as Hail, Hail, the gang's all here, and we're all sharing that musical experience and getting everyone engaged and feeling safe in the space. And then oftentimes I'll go into some sort of really engaging physical movement and using a song with strong rhythm and maracas or tambourines or instruments, and we're actively making music together to some of the songs that they know well. And then oftentimes I'll kind of switch into maybe something a little more cognitively stimulating, socially engaging, where maybe we're sharing a memory about a certain song, or we're chatting together about a theme or a musical idea. And then oftentimes I kind of transition out with a goodbye song and saying kind of that social piece of saying goodbye to one another and to me. And again, the groups look so different depending on the day and the needs, but oftentimes we're making music together, we're socially sharing memories and reminiscing, but the options are limitless. So we do a lot of different things.
So you bring in some instruments for them to actually play then?
Yep. Yeah. Oftentimes I'll bring in kind of handheld instruments like tambourines, shakers, drums, kind of things that prompt them and kind of help organize their brain to be able to move to the rhythm and to be able to move their bodies, dance, all those different things that they love.
Okay. And I've heard some will bring in like scarves or even the noodles that we use for swimming to wave and hop around and things. It's kind of, it seems endless to the possibilities of what can be done. Do you encourage them to ever do because again, I'm sure you get people at different levels, but maybe if you've got one person who really likes to sing, to come up and stand and sing with you and kind of perform, or are you more performing to them?
So I think, do you have something to? Go ahead. Yeah, so I think that oftentimes if that's someone's goal or their needs is to kind of have that sharing of their voice or having that emotional expression, definitely sharing that with one another. But oftentimes we try to see it as more of a process-oriented practice. So we're really emphasizing the benefits of the process and how we're working together and we're collaborating and making music and moving our bodies and all those different things versus more of entertainment. So we kind of try to educate our staff that we work with and also just the community in general that we are different than entertainment, and we are trying to share music that that will benefit the clients we work with in a way that's different than just kind of singing to them or just performing for them, because we're, again, like we mentioned before, adapting in the moment to meet those individualized needs.
Okay, so on an individual one-on-one, is the process different for you then or not?
Yeah, did you want to share a little bit about individual?
Sure. I would say it's similar and different for individual sessions. We can really have the ability to dig a little deeper on preferences, on specific interests or abilities when we have individual and family sessions. So we really get to know someone's specific musical preferences. We know from the literature that patient or client preferred music is the most effective for music therapy sessions. And in a group, we might be more general in picking music from a certain era, or as Carolyn mentioned, maybe a specific theme or a time of year. But an individual session, I would really get to know that person through conversation with them or their family, or looking around the room sometimes if they're nonverbal, learning what I can about them, maybe about their background, if they're Irish and have a particular interest in Irish music, or if that's important to their identity. Many times the music from a person's 20s and early 30s is the music that they really are connected to because they had the strongest emotional connection to that music. That's the time of life when people are often starting out in their careers or starting families. And so the emotional response to that music is the strongest. And that's where a music therapist has the background and training to really handle that emotional response. You mentioned earlier that music can be uplifting. It can also be incredibly intense and bring out really intense responses and emotions. And if someone is nonverbal or doesn't have the ability any longer to verbalize very much, it can be a really powerful experience for them. And as a music therapist, we have the skills to help them handle that emotion and transition to it or from it as they can and want to. And that's another way that we're different than entertainment.
Okay. Can you give us, because people who aren't familiar with music therapists, I mean, I've seen you guys in action and or seen music therapists in action. I haven't seen you two in particular. And it is quite amazing, but people will wonder, well, what do you mean by transition? What's going on? And so because you can actually change behaviors and reactions in terms of people's moods and just general responses through the rhythm of the music and stuff. So can you go into a little bit more detail on that for those that don't understand? And I understand like this much of it, but I see it and I know it works. And that's
yeah. That is the beauty of music therapy, and how we advocate is seeing is believing in many cases. And once people see it, they believe in it and they want it more. And that's honestly how we do a lot of our advocacy work is by come see a session, and then people see it and they see the response that people have to it and want more of it. But to answer your question, I'll get a little bit technical for a second, and I'll kind of describe a technique that we use from the literature. It's called the ISO principle. So exactly what you just described, this is the mechanism behind it. It's the idea is that we use the music to match someone's physiologic state. So if I enter a client's room and I can see that they're very agitated, they are having a really bad day, and they're breathing quickly, and maybe they're even displaying some tremors, I am not going to enter and start playing lullaby style music in that moment. And if you think about it, listeners, in your own lives, if someone tells you when you're very upset, if they say, just calm down, it's the exact same idea, right? It just makes you more angry. And so what we do is we actually use, maybe we know a preferred song. Ideally, we would if it's an individual session, and we would play the song in the style that we're seeing them display. So we might take a slow song, let's say it's Amazing Grace, but we might start really fast with a upbeat accompaniment pattern, for example. And then they'll often, their attention will turn to the music because it's something new, different. Oh, I noticed that something changed in my environment. And as we notice that change, and if we start to see any changes in their body or their breathing, we change the music accordingly. And this really does work. We meet someone where they are, and then we try to help them get to a comfortable place. Oftentimes, the goal is not to get them to go to sleep, for example. We just want them to feel more calm and less agitated, right? So we might then slow down the music, and it really does work. It is amazing to see, and it can be amazing for us to even experience when we know why it works. But it really does, and the literature supports it.
Yeah, I saw that with my mom. I had a couple of friends, and they weren't music therapists, but one was a videographer and one was a singer guitarist, and they were gonna kind of gift me an hour worth of their time. And I still, on my YouTube channel, I have those music videos, and I can now, and she's been gone 5 years, I can have the worst day, and just like, I don't know how I'm going to get through this day, and you just think, it's just horrific. You got deadlines all over, whatever's going on. And I can go watch one of those videos, and she just melts my heart because I know how joyful she was in the moment. And, you see even in the end stages, you saw the hands going and the toes start pumping and the smile and the glint in the eye. And then, she would maybe doze off because she'd get tired. And then they'd pull her back out again through music, and it was, it's kind of like that Alive Inside, the videos that show the power of music. And I know a lot of times you can't share photos because of HIPAA and all of that stuff, but there's, if you just open your eyes and you watch for it, it's there. I mean, if you just even pay attention to yourself in terms of how you are breathing and where do you hide when you're feeling stress, what calms you down. We tap into these things on a very unconscious level. And you guys, well, Kayla, how long do you have to go to school? I know it's like amazingly, it's a lot of schooling to get through this whole process. Can you share a little background on that, you or Carolyn? Because I think that will shock people too.
So all music therapists have a degree in music therapy. And that can be, it's many times a 4-year bachelor's degree, specifically in music therapy. I took a bit of a different path because I had a bachelor's degree in music education, and there is a path to getting a master's degree in music therapy that kind of combines some of that undergraduate coursework plus some of the graduate coursework, so you don't have to start from scratch with your music courses. So I have a master's, but you can practice at either level. So there are courses in anatomy and physiology, in psychology, abnormal psychology, counseling skills, in addition to the academic degree that is music. Mm-hmm. In addition to the coursework, we have around 1,200 hours of supervised clinical work throughout that. And that includes a 1,000-hour internship at the end of the coursework. So that's about 6 months of full-time, unpaid, supervised clinical hours that our students, that we both completed. Mm-hmm. But it's really where you learn how to apply all of your schooling and all of the coursework.
I was surprised, and I think so many people are, because they think, well, it's just a natural talent, that people have, and it just happens. And it's like, well, yeah, we can all make a difference, picking out a song and stuff. But again, we don't understand the depths of why it works. We just know it does. But we also don't know how to change things. And so if you've got somebody who's really agitated, it sounds like you kind of start out with a beat that's equal to whatever their pace is, and then you gradually slow it down. Is that it? And switch it over. Carolyn, have you, I guess when you first started, what amazed you the most? And maybe it was even during your internship, but I'm sure both of you had those moments of, wow, I knew this worked, but this really works.
Yeah, I think they often say that music is magic, and although that it appears to be that way, we know that there's so much going on in our brains when we experience music. And so that's having that knowledge and going in and seeing things. It's still amazing, but it's also amazing to know that how much our neurons are firing and connecting and doing all these amazing things. But I think when I started, just kind of even the sheer kind of engaging factor of music, going into my first couple memory care groups and just seeing how music just kind of engages people so quickly, I think is quite amazing. You can have people that, I think of one of my first couple groups, a woman who was extremely agitated in the moment, and she was yelling and just really, you could tell she was under a lot of stress. And when I started to sing, it was "You Are My Sunshine," I believe, she was able to just really make eye contact with me, have this moment of rapport and building social experiences, and just able to engage with me. And again, I think I used the ISO principle, like Kayla was saying, where I was doing it at a faster tempo. But just the motivating factor of music is really exciting, because we are able to use that in such a healing way.
I can think of an example during one of my practicum experiences. So those experiences are interlaced with the coursework. So I was still a student, and I was at a long-term care community doing a group in memory care, and the theme was on travel. And I had a woman in my group who I had met previous weeks during my experience there. But today she was sitting and she appeared to be asleep. She had her head down. Her daughter was next to her the whole time, trying to wake her up and get her to sing, mom, sing, mom. And,
Which happens a lot.
Yeah, it happens a lot. And I understand that, really that hope and wish that mom's going to wake up and sing. But that day she hadn't been. And I was transitioning to the end of the group, and I said, many times when we travel, we're excited to get home. I think we should finish with "Show Me the Way to Go Home." And immediately she went from head down to head straight up and sang, "Show me the way to go home. I'm tired, I don't want to go to bed." She sang it, the whole song, fast by herself. And her daughter just started weeping, because we all realized in that moment that she had been with us the whole time. She had been listening the whole time, and just didn't want to engage in the other parts the way her daughter wanted her to. But then at the very end, she sang our closing goodbye song for us. And I'll never forget that moment, and I bet her daughter won't either. That was such a moment of connection. And the other group members also, I think, realized, oh, we can't discount this person. They're still here. They're still with us, even if they aren't sitting up looking like me in this moment.
Yeah. And it might be that she didn't want to, or it might be that her body just couldn't.
Yes.
But they kind of pull those reserves in, and I witnessed that multiple times with my mom's journey. And it would be, I always say those moments, they're so profound. I mean, and they're so deep, and they're small, simple little things, but they're really the things that matter to us in the long run. And what a gift, what a gift for everybody. And how you said it affects the daughter, but it really affected the whole room, because everybody takes notice of that. And now, one thing I wanted to ask you was, can people benefit from both individual and group experiences? Or do you think they're one or the other on that?
I think they absolutely can benefit from all types of music therapy experiences, group and individual or family sessions. As we've mentioned before, a group might be focused on different domains throughout maybe an hour-long group. We're working on movement, we're working on songwriting, memory recall, life review, but an individual session really can be focused on that personal goal. It might be helping them decrease agitation. It might be working with the family on how they can use music to help decrease agitation, or even working with the family on how they can use music for their own self-care, because we know that can be draining and tiring and complicated as well. Do you have any examples of working with both?
I think of one example where I saw a gentleman both in the group setting and in an individual family setting as well. And what I thought was pretty great about that experience was, obviously in our group sessions, he was really engaged, and I was able to work on some of those group goals and see him really motivated by music. But then when I was able to meet with him and his wife on an individual basis, I learned that he played guitar and he used to be in a band. And I just was able to connect with him and his family and just learn a little bit more about his musical background that I might not have gotten that information in a group setting. And so I think that was a really great experience. And we were able to actually kind of help him. He had some motor difficulties, but we were able to kind of adapt a guitar for him to be able to continue playing guitar as well. And so that was another kind of a resource that I was able to support the family with and give them this resource that they could use when I'm there and also when I wasn't present as well. So that was a really, really wonderful experience.
Cool. What in terms of family groups, can you give us some, or family sessions, can you give us some examples? Is that like special occasions, or people just look at it as a therapy thing and come together? How is that done, or is it a mixture?
I think it is a mixture, but it is often a type of therapy that we can invite others to participate in. Whereas maybe other traditional therapies like physical therapy, it's not going to be a group family exercise class typically. I don't know why it couldn't be, but it probably isn't. But music therapy, often we find that family members want to come, they want to be a part of it, they will engage, they will sing with their loved one, they'll sing to their loved one. That's always the dream, and we can help facilitate that happening. And so many times I will tell you that someone will share a memory or a response to a song, and their family will say, I didn't know that. I never heard that before. I had no idea that song was played at your wedding. And so they're still learning new things about each other, which is my very favorite outcome of music therapy, is that all the way to the end of someone's life, they can still be teaching each other, and they can be learning from each other and sharing new memories and old ones.
Well, that's cool. I remember when these gals came for my mom, and my mom sang a song, and I think it was called Jibber Jabber. I had never heard the song, and the person's like, oh yeah, it's a really old song. My mom just lit up, and then she loved that I didn't know it. I mean, you could see the pride in that, and it was just really kind of an amazing process. Now, you guys have a product called Keynote Keepsake. Kayla, can you tell us a little bit about that and who would benefit from that product and why?
Yeah, so I think anyone at any time in their life would benefit from this product, because every one of us in this moment has a story to tell and a legacy that we will leave behind. So most of our work as music therapists is very process oriented, as we've discussed today. But the Keynote Keepsake is an actual tangible product that can take many forms. And I'll give some examples of keepsakes that I've done with clients in the past. A couple of my favorites. One was a woman wanted to record with me an album of favorite songs from her life. She was hesitant to sing along with me, but her voice is audible on some of the tracks. So we recorded it together. I was sitting right next to her during that process, but she really wanted to be a part of the liner notes. So she would dictate and tell me the stories that accompanied each of the songs and why they were important to her. And so we created this album with the printed liner notes and gave a copy to all of her family members as a gift. Yeah, and that album was played at her service at her funeral. And I was there providing live music as well. And I could see different family members light up when they heard a song that they were part of that story. That was a wonderful one. Something totally different. I had a client who wanted to write an original composition. She had no previous experience in songwriting, so that's not a requirement. But she had a great sense of humor, and she wanted to write a funny song about getting old. And so she was the lyricist, and she made all the musical decisions. And that song was also played at her funeral. And, you know, people really connected with her through that song. And then another example was a woman wanted to tell her life story. She wrote it all down. She did a video recording. We recorded specific music to be in the background when she also wanted to include some photos and videos so that she could give that as a gift to her grandchildren. So the Keynote keepsake can be anything really, but we utilize multimedia. It could be a creative arts intervention. It could be really whatever someone wants it to be, but it's really designed to be a product. Like you mentioned, the video you have of you and your mom, that's an ongoing gift that we can provide for families.
It just keeps on giving. It would be nice, and I don't know if you guys would ever feel comfortable in approaching some of your people, but if they would ever be willing to share those, because I think it would entice other people to do it. Because hearing it's one thing, but seeing it, it really is magical.
Yes.
I mean, I have walked in to huge conferences where I'm going to speak, and my mom's on the screen. Somebody else has her pulled up, you know, as an example for, you know, music. And I remember the first time it happened, you know, somebody said, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I should have asked." I'm like, "It's on YouTube. It's a set. This is the whole point. My mom would love to know she's helping somebody else step into that." You know, and so just a thought that, and plus it gives that person a little bit of a legacy too, in terms of living on, you know, forever. And, you know, as a family member for myself, and again, everyone's not like me, but it just gives me great pride, you know, like when I would walk in and see that this is helping others, you know, it was just like, oh, you know, this was good for us, but it's good for others as well. And really, really powerful. But I think, again, being able for people to physically be able to hear and see, you know, what it is, and maybe even getting some responses from family members or, you know, the person who you were working with on how it made them feel to produce that. Those testimonies, I think, would be just fabulous to really help push the product out. And you can tell them I said so.
Love you approved.
Yeah. When should families start thinking about music therapy for a loved one? I mean, it's, you know, it's not on the list that you get from the doctor typically, and a lot of people don't even know that this exists because you don't know what you don't know until you just kind of happen to trip across it. So when should people, you know, start thinking about this? And I don't know if Carolyn, if you want to take this one.
I mean, we say whenever we support music therapy at any stage of life, but oftentimes we do see it more towards end of life, and we're kind of trying to advocate and educate to earlier than that, because as we know, music therapy is really beneficial for symptom management and just a lot of different other benefits that we see, as we've talked about today, that music therapy can help people with. So we say anytime, but we understand that sometimes that people don't know about music therapy until these different moments. But
And I think earlier you asked when, can someone benefit from group and individual? And I think sometimes we've come across families who know that their loved one is getting music therapy services in a group at the residence that they live at. But that doesn't mean that they can't also provide music therapy for their loved one on an individual basis, or contract with that same business. We're often open to doing that. And we've really tried to connect with families of the residents at the places that we serve so that we can educate them on, yes, things that we're doing in groups, but also ways that we can impact their loved one individually in their unique needs.
Yeah, I know when my mom was in the nursing home and we'd have somebody come in and play for my mom and things, and then everyone would just kind of come around the door. I mean, the music just, it attracts people. So, we started moving it out of her room and in so that everybody could enjoy it. And my mom got great pride in that too.
Yeah.
And so
Give
that was kind of neat. Yeah, it was very, very, very cool. Carolyn, can you talk about symptoms management in a little bit more in depth, and maybe give some examples of that as well and how that works?
Yeah, so a lot of time I can think of an example of how oftentimes when people are at nearing end of life, we see a lot of comorbid mental health needs like anxiety and depression. And that's why we just advocate for us being a part of these people's lives early on. And so we're able to kind of process that with them before that time. And so I think we often advocate for that. But other types of symptoms that we often address are that go along with conditions like Parkinson's. We see tremors and kind of those difficulties with physical movement. And so if we're able to be a part of that person's healing and their symptom management early on, then we can kind of allow them their symptoms to be managed throughout their lifespan. And I think being able to, again, have that motivating quality of music to be able to do that and build that rapport with people, so is really, we see that really a beneficial thing in treating their symptoms.
Okay. Now I've heard, just for some specific, I guess, reactions and symptoms, but I've heard music therapists used to kind of help people even eat, kind of get in the mood to eat when they've been tired, or to maybe sleep when they're constantly moving and agitated. Have you worked with those two specific scenarios?
I think with kind of those activities of daily life, like you were saying, we can definitely be involved in them as needed. Oftentimes with Keynote, we're not always, there at those specific times unless we're asked, but I could definitely see music being a beneficial outlet for someone during those times. So
I think sometimes we're even though programmed, so we might be on a memory care schedule at a certain time for exactly those reasons.
Yeah, that's true.
So maybe we're right before lunch because that's a way to transition from maybe mid-morning nap to more wakeful state, and you're ending with something more engaging, and so people are more awake and, like you said, at the more of an energy level where they can eat. Mid-afternoon can be a really challenging time for older adults, we know. And so we're often asked to provide groups during that 3 to 4:30 time as well, to help with that transition from day to evening that we know can be agitating.
And even I think some of the facilities that I'm at a time where they're kind of at the end of maybe those pain medication or those medications, and I'm able to kind of support them and what they're experiencing as their medication wears off. So I think about that too. The timing of that is important.
Interesting. Yeah, I just find it so interesting. I remember, again, I go back to the stories of my mom and talking with the administrator about I wanted some changes made in the bathrooms and stuff, just from regular showers to rain shower heads and stuff. And he was asking me what else, and I, talked about color and heated towel bars and stuff like that. And the last thing I said, I don't know if you can do this one, but if you can get your staff to sing their songs during the shower and pump that music in there, I just think that would really alleviate a lot of the stress and the anxiety that happens during that grooming period. And he just kind of laughed and yet understood, with aromatherapy and lighting. And I mean, there's so many different aspects, but music can be used in so many different ways. And we just have to get creative in terms of understanding it more. So I really appreciate you guys taking the time to talk about the actual, kind of science behind all of this, because most of us just think, hey, it's a great song. It makes me feel good, or, oh, it brings tears to my eyes, or, whatever. But we don't think about the emotional connections and why that's happening to us and how our body is reacting. Kayla, what kinds of resources do you offer to communities in general? Can you just kind of summarize that for us?
Yeah, absolutely. So actually, what you just mentioned about talking with staff about singing during grooming, we actually, one of the long-term care chains that we provide music therapy for, our music therapist does monthly in-services for the staff there on how they can use music. Yeah. How they can use music as a therapeutic tool during meal times, considering music choice during those times, or during transitions to and from rooms, or even how the staff can use music for their own well-being and self-care. Another way is we are often asked to be guest speakers at support groups for people with specific diagnoses, yes, but also for caregivers. And same idea, training them, teaching them about music therapy, yes, but also ways that they can use music intentionally for themselves and their loved ones.
And that's nice, because I have to be honest, and I've dealt with some music therapists that didn't want the average Joe to tap into music. And I love that you're teaching people, and granted, we're not going to get what you guys have learned in the time frame, but we can still leverage it and help the situation and complement what you're doing. And to me, I think that that's a really, really important piece, because while you're educating us on just the general use, you are also educating us on the skill set that you have and the therapeutic value behind it. And how we can kind of start it off, but you can bring it to a whole nother level. And I think that that's a very, very important piece. So I'm thrilled to hear that one of the larger communities is really starting to embrace that, because I have pushed that for years, and think that that's just really important. Carolyn, is there anything that we haven't covered that you'd like to mention?
I think kind of what you were just saying, that our goal at Keynote is to just to share what we know and to educate people and support not only the people we're working with, but their loved ones and their caregivers. We know what music can do for people, and we want to be able to empower people to use it, and not only when we're in the room, but when we're out of the room as well. And that's just what our mission is, and how we kind of see our services.
Well, and again, it's so powerful to be able to educate people on what you're doing and why you're doing it, and how because we're just lost souls out here trying to figure out how to make somebody feel as comfortable as possible when it comes to dementia. And anything we can add to our toolkit is just a gift to us, and so really appreciate that effort very much. Kayla, how about you? Anything that we didn't cover that we should have covered?
We covered a lot of topics today, and if anybody ever has the opportunity to see music therapy in action, I will reaffirm that that is what helps people understand it. It's hard for us to sit here and describe it. Yeah. It's hard to, even if we were demonstrating to you right now, it's hard for people to understand the true immediate response that we can sometimes see. So if you get the chance to see it in action, I would encourage you to do so.
Yeah, I would too. And I'll just throw a plug in for the Alive Inside movie. Again, that's not music therapy, but it'll show what the average Joe can do with music and the benefits that it can take. And I think that that's insightful, because you see a person react, and these are people from post-traumatic stress to dementia to psychosis, all kinds of different situations, and you can't miss the difference. I mean, you can't. If you're watching it, there's no way you can not see it.
Mhm.
And you see it not only in the person, but you see the whole room change. Kind of like when you were mentioning the woman who slept through everything, and then she sang that last song, and I want to go home. You can't miss it, and everybody notices how powerful that is and how important that is, and makes us all think, how do we incorporate that more? How do we bring out those moments of joy and connection? And that's just incredible. So our listeners can contact you via email by going to info@keynotemn.com. That's info@keynotemn.com. Or you can always call, and that number is 612-200-3284, 612-200-3284. And of course, don't forget to check out their website, and that is www.keynotemn.com. Well, thank you again, ladies. This has been a wonderful, wonderful conversation, and I think people will find this very beneficial. And again, it just gives us hope, and we all need more hope, and we need to be able to see the connections that we're still able to have. And I think sometimes the disease can take that away from us, or we allow that to be taken away from us. But when you see that magic happen, even though any magician will say, well, it really wasn't magic, I have a process back here just like you guys do, to the rest of us, it's just magical and it's beautiful, and that's okay. As long as we have gifted people like you to show us the magic. We don't have to necessarily know all the ins and outs. We just know we enjoy the end game with it and being able to appreciate it. So thank you for all you're doing and spreading the word, and really appreciate you taking this time with us on Alzheimer's Speaks today.
Thank you so much, Lori. We really enjoyed talking with you.
For our listeners, again, please share and like and spread the word of this. This is something that more people need to really understand. And hopefully this conversation will help. And now you have a resource to grab a hold of and learn even more. Bye now.